Welcome back to Ty and That Guy. I'm Wes Chatham, and this is my good pal, Ty Franck.
Yeah, and today we're talking about episode 103 of The Expanse, which was...
Remember the Can't.
Yeah, but I was going to say, it was our first episode not directed by Terry McDonough.
Jeff Wonell?
Yeah.
Jeff Wonell.
Jeff, who has... that's what I was just about to say. Jeff Wonell, who has been a director on every season of the show and is currently working on season 6 of the show. So yeah, he's our longest running guy.
He's the only director to survive the whole ride.
Yeah. He met us in season 1, and unlike everyone else who met us in season 1, didn't say "fuck you guys, I'm never coming back."
Well, he did. I mean, but then him and Lorraine are good friends, so he kind of passed that over. Let's start with Miller. Let's start with his storyline. We start on series, and Holden's video has now gone viral, and it is really triggering the Belters and water shortage, and there's conspiracy theories flying everywhere. And Star Helix realizes that they got to start locking down, clamping down. And we you know what we haven't noticed, we haven't talked about yet is Jay Hernandez.
You know what? We have not talked about Jay Hernandez yet.
Not talked about Jay Hernandez.
Yeah.
And I'm just a little jelly that he gets to be Magnum PI, because you know how I feel about Magnum PI.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, as big a Magnum fan as you are, and you have been a very vocal Magnum fan since the first time I met you.
Right.
That a guy who played a character on our show for a couple of episodes went on to become the new Magnum.
Fuck yeah. And if I would have known, have you seen the new show? I haven't seen the new one.
I haven't watched the new one. No.
But can I tell a little Magnum story real quick? I think I'm going to tell a little Magnum story.
I think you have to tell it now.
All right. So when I was, what really got me, what hooked me into Magnum, I think it was the first episode of season 3, and it was called Have you seen the sunrise?
Yep.
And my mother had the hots for Thomas Selleck, and so Magnum PI was, and I was watching that.
Everyone's mother had the hots for Tom Selleck.
Your mom was
not unique.
He was Mama Catnip.
Oh yeah,
about him. The mamas loved him. And
every one of our fathers was having sex with our moms while she was thinking about Tom Selleck.
She was thinking about Tom Selleck. Yeah, and some of the fathers were thinking about Tom Selleck. We'll keep it real.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. I'm sure that was true.
But so I was watching this episode, and in the story, if I remember correctly, Magnum number 1 was a SEAL, which I think is just awesome. And in this episode, he was they would flashback, and and he was in Vietnam, and there was a Russian colonel. I don't know why there's a Russian colonel in Vietnam, but anyway, so there's a Russian colonel in Vietnam, and he was torturing Tom Selleck and his friends, and he ended up killing one of his buddies. For whatever reason, I don't remember why, but this colonel was now on the mainland of Hawaii and was after him and his buddy. And the whole episode was about him trying to figure out who the Russian colonel, I think his name was Stan or something. Anyway, so the Russian colonel was after him through the whole thing. And there was a moment where him and his buddy, an old Army buddy, were there, and his old Army buddy was getting in the car. And he said, "Hey, let's go up the hill and let's go watch the sunset." And they're going, and he turned it on and cranked the car, and it blew up. And that was meant for Magnum. And so now Magnum knew that this guy killed his buddy in war and also killed his buddy on the here in the mainland. So at the very last scene of the episode, Tom Selleck finally catches up to the Russian, catches up to him, and the Russian looks at him and says, I guess he has a diplomatic immunity. He's a Russian diplomat or something. And Thomas knows that he killed these people, and he knows that he killed these people. And Thomas Magnum looked at him, and he said, he held the gun up, and then the Russian diplomat said, "You're not going to shoot me because it's not your style. It's not the American way." and then he turns his back to walk away. And then up to this point, being a kid of the 80s and watching these shows and the heroes, and they'll never shoot him in the back, and they'll never do, they'll never, because the Russian said, I'm unarmed. You're not going to shoot me because I'm unarmed. It's not your style. It's not the American way. Turn around and walk away. And then Tom said, hey, he turned around and he said, did you see the sunrise this morning? And he goes, yeah, I did. Boom! And Thomas blasted him. And then it ended. And I was like, oh my God, he murdered that guy in cold blood. And I saw that. And it was like the first time I ever seen anything like that on TV. And then from then on, I was hooked. I was a Magnum PI fan.
It's an iconic scene. I mean, it's a famous scene. Do you watch the cartoon Archer? You ever watch Archer?
No. Well, I've watched the first 2 seasons of Archer, but I know they did like the opening, right? They did the opening of Magnum PI. Like there's like,
well, there's an episode where Archer finds out that he has cancer, and the point of the episode is that these mobsters have been replacing cancer drugs with fake drugs so they can resell the cancer drugs, and Archer has this little old lady that he's been hanging out with when they get their chemotherapy. Mm-hmm. And she winds up dying. And when he and this old lady hang out together, they always talk about Regis. And she's always like, did you watch Regis this morning? And they talk about Regis, right? Yeah. So he catches up to the mobster that's been doing this. And it's that moment where he's like, the mobster's starting to leave. And Archer goes, did you watch Regis this morning? And the guy turns around and says, yeah, why? And then he blows him away. It's totally that moment. I mean, they completely ripped that moment up. It's such an iconic moment.
I don't know why I don't watch more Archer. There's other Magnum PI, by the way. There's a lot of Magnum PI like Easter eggs in Archer.
Yeah, tons of them. Yeah, no, and Archer loves Magnum. But here's the thing: you should be watching Archer because 2 of your close friends are the characters from that show. Ooh. Steven looks like Archer, and Dasha looks like Archer's wife.
Dasha. What season was that when they
it's the season where they introduced Katya is either the first or the second season when Katya shows up. But Archer's wife, Katya, his Russian wife, is literally Dasha's
wife. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When the first time I met her, I turned to Steve, I said, oh my God, you married Katya. It's so funny. Dasha's a huge fan of Archer, so she was flattered by that. She was like, oh, that's so great.
It's hilarious to me because Archer, right? I don't know why I haven't just dove in because it cracks me up every time I watch it. I just always forget. I get distracted with other things.
Yeah, it's the first 4 seasons of it are fantastic. Yeah.
Why is Jay Hernandez going to learn belters from the prostitute? What was the?
So the idea there was that to be a good cop. Yeah, when you're a cop who's in an area that is new to you, like let's say you're a cop and you move to LA. One of the first things you want to do when you move to LA is learn Spanish, because half the population in LA speaks Spanish. A big chunk of the population in that area of California speaks Spanish better than they speak English. Learning Spanish is a huge advantage for a cop. So you've got a guy like Jay Hernandez,
Havelock,
yeah. So Havelock has moved from some other place to series. He's under contract because the cops there are all private contract. So he's a contractor working for the company for Star Helix. They send him to series. He's never worked there before. The first thing a good cop wants to do is learn the local language. And so he meets Gia, the prostitute, and they have a moment. And he just starts going back to her, and we trick people into thinking he's going to her for sex, but he's not.
But was the first visit sex?
It wasn't. No, we always played it that when he was going to see her, he was going to see her to have her teach him. No. So here's it goes the other direction.
So he went and he paid, and he goes in there and is like, "Hey, so I need a language tutor." And but
if you watch what happens when Miller goes to, that first investigation, we see him with the murder, the dead belter, right. and he and G are talking to each other, and they slip into like full belter, and we see that Havelock doesn't understand what they're saying. We see him looking at her, we see him looking at Miller, we see that he's He doesn't understand what they're saying.
Right.
That's why it's connected to that moment. And I think what actually happens when we.
But why did you go to a smoking hot prostitute to learn? I mean, they don't have tutors.
Well, I'm sure that they do. And I think the way it plays out.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think if Jen found out that I was going to a prostitute Toronto or when I was in Russia and I was like, no, I'm just learning Russia. It's like,
okay,
that's what it is.
So what you're saying to me is I should not tell Jen about the prostitute.
That's
what I'm hearing right now.
Because what I was about to say and that's actually really funny. What I was about to say is I said a prostitute in Toronto, and then I was about to say learning, but I already know the language here. So I was like, no, I was learning the Toronto.
I was learning Canadian. I had to go to
Canadian. No, I was not doing anything wrong. I was learning Canadian.
I was learning Canadian.
I want to sneak this.
This super hot prostitute. No, but I think we definitely give you the impression that he started doing that, going there to learn the language, and that some sort of romantic feelings evolved out of that, because when you see them later, they definitely act like people who have, genuine care for each other beyond just that she's my language tutor. Yeah.
No, I know. I honestly, what I think, and obviously I'm the writer and the creator of the show, but what I think is that there was a legal matter that he probably helped her out with and gave her, and then he said, hey, in return, could you, teach me some Belter language?
I think that if you are somebody who's working now in the Expanse feature, prostitution is legal and regulated and all that. So there's no legal problem there. But I think if you're a person who's working with the kind of people who might try to take advantage of somebody in that position, having a friend who's a cop, not a terrible idea. So I'm sure Gia saw the advantage to that very quickly. Like, if this cop is my friend, that will help me.
Yeah. And shout out to Sarah. Is it Mittich?
Yeah, Middick.
Shout out to Sarah Middick. She was,
or maybe it is Mittich. That's actually a good question. I think it might actually be Mittich.
Sarah Mittich. Yeah, she was such a good friend of the show and such a good actress, and we were lucky to have her in that part. And Jay Hernandez, Havelock, showed a tremendous amount of restraint just learning language from Gia. Serious question: how funny is the Laugh Shack, the Mormons at the Laugh Shack? Is that a good time?
It's good, clean, wholesome family fun.
Yeah.
You can take your 5-year-old and you can have a good time. Mormons tend not to work blue.
And wasn't there a Book of Mormon Easter egg in there somewhere?
Okay, yeah. So when we had blame all of this on Narain.
Okay.
So in the books, we have there's a Mormon generation ship that's being built called the Nauvoo that they're going to use to try to fly to another star and colonize another planet. And Narain, so for us, the reason we did that as Daniel and I as writers is just because we were trying to figure out who would have enough money to buy a spaceship, a generation ship, but also have enough sort of like shared culture in a small group that they would try to send people to do something like that and feel like it had a chance of success. And the only people I could come up with were the Mormons, because they've got a ton of money. Right around the time we were writing the first book, the Mormons had just spent $1 billion buying most of downtown Salt Lake City. They just wrote a check for $1 billion. And I'm like, these motherfuckers got some money, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, who would build a spaceship to travel 100 years, have a bunch of babies on a spaceship, and then take all the people who had traveled for that 100 years and had all those babies and try to colonize a new planet and have the money to pay for it? So that was why we had Mormons. Narain got super into the whole Mormon thing on the show and like added a bunch of stuff we had never put in the books. And one of the things he added was in the background of one of the shots in series, there is a poster for the Book of Mormon musical. And it says like now in their like 500th showing or something like that. Like that musical has been going on for the last 200 years. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that was one of the Easter eggs there.
One of the moments that I picked up this time on rewatching it is that Captain Shadid, Captain Shadid, she's kind of waving Miller off now. Miller's getting a little close. And it kind of reminds me of that Man on Fire situation where, and I think this is this is really sad, is that there was somebody that was at the top of their game and now they're kind of, they're not the cops that they once were. And they realized, and I don't think he's realized it yet, but ultimately he was picked because he's not the guy that's going to see it through.
Yeah.
And the fact that, it's that Man on Fire, moment where he realized that they hired him to be the bodyguard because he's washed up and he's an alcoholic and
well, and he's also picked because he's the guy who will take a bribe. In the very first episode of the show, we show him taking a bribe.
Right.
And Shadid says when she gives him the thing, she says, this is off the books. A rich guy wants to find his wayward daughter, kidnap her, and send her home. Right? Yeah. Miller even says, "Oh, a kidnap job." So she knows that if Miller tracks down where Julie is, and Daddy Warbucks shows up and hands him a fat sack full of money and says, "All right, give me my daughter, and here, take the sack of money." Miller's the guy who will do that. At least in Shadid's mind. In Shadid's mind, Miller's the guy who will take a bag of money to kidnap a girl and give her to her dad. That's why he gets the job.
And then one of the great moments is when we get to meet Anderson Dawes for the first time. And Jared Harris,
the great Jared Harris. I think he, to see a heavyweight talent like that, he comes on, he has one scene and it's essentially an exposition scene. He's giving information. They're going back and forth with Miller. The amount of gravity and relationship and history that he brings to that scene is, he's a truly an amazing actor. And I think in Anderson Dawes is the way that he created and the way that he plays Anderson Dawes is he's one of my favorite character of The Expanse. I think he's so interesting and there's so many layers and there's so much depth and there's humor and humanity and intelligence and toughness and sensitivity. And the fact that, that versatility is so rare. And the fact that we got to work with him is just, we're so lucky. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why he works constantly. There's a reason why. So people always ask, well, how come you haven't brought Dawes back? Well, Jared is a friend of the show. I mean, Jared likes the show and he's still good friends with Steven. And, he's happy. He liked being on the show. He's told us over and over again how much he enjoyed the experience. But every time we have a part where like, oh, we need to bring Dawes back here. Like this would be a great scene for Dawes or a great sequence of scenes or, it's episodes that we could pull Dawes into. Every time that comes up, we reach out to him and he's like, oh, I'd love to do it, but I have 7 other shows I'm doing right now. And the reason we can't get him back and the reason that he works constantly is because he is one of the best actors working right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just an astonishingly good, you watch The Terror, that AMC series that he did about the ships that were trapped trying to find the Northern Passage or the Northwest Passage and were destroyed by the ice. Yeah. If you haven't seen The Terror, definitely watch The Terror. It's
what's the tone? I didn't hear
it. It's about it's about in the 1800s, these wooden ships that were trying to find what they called the Northwest Passage, which was a way to get around North America by going north of Canada and then coming down the other side. But of course, during much of the year, that's all frozen. And so they were trying to find a way to do that. And these 2 ships, one of which was named the Terror, got trapped up there. And this is true, by the way, this is a true story. All of the sailors disappeared. Like no one knows what happened to them. They found the ships. They found the wrecked ships, the 2 wrecked ships, which had been crushed by the ice. But all of the sailors who were on those 2 ships are just gone.
And this is on AMC?
It's on AMC, yeah.
I did see Chernobyl.
Chernobyl was maybe the best thing I saw that year. Yeah. It's astonishingly good.
It's so good. And he's so good in it.
Yeah, he's amazing in it. There's a moment in Chernobyl that I think is one of the best written and performed scenes of that year. And it's the moment where he's talking to Sarsgaard, the general, right? And they're talking about how all the people they've sent in, the firefighters and everybody they sent in is going to die. And the general says, well, you and I are here. And he says, oh, we'll be dead in 5 years. And the look on the general's face when he says that, where Jared Harris has just calmly told a man that they're both already have a death sentence. And that he starts talking about the ways in which it might happen. Either it will be this, or it will be this, or it will be this. But there's no like out to it. He's not like, maybe we could live. Like, it's just, you and I are already dead. We've already been killed. Here's the death sentence. Here's how long it's going to be. Here's the ways in which we will be executed. It's an astonishing scene.
That movie broke my heart, and it's so well done. I'm sorry, that series, it broke my heart. So well done. But I'm gonna have to give you smarty pants, Expanse writers and creators a little bit of shit. All right, this is
we're
not gonna kiss each other's ass the whole time, but Havelock, gets stabbed through the fucking heart.
No, it's not the heart.
By a spike.
Yeah, it's not the heart.
Suspends him in the air.
Yes,
and he's left all night long.
Yes.
And then they walk by and they kick trash, and he's like, oh, God. And then he's still fucking alive. How the hell did he survive that?
That is actually based on a real thing. He doesn't get stabbed through the heart because, of course, that would just kill you. It is through the center of his torso.
Is there a way that I'll go get my iPad right now. It went through his heart.
It's through the sternum. It's not through the heart.
All right.
And when we were talking about that scene, we had an article that we were reading about a guy who had like an explosion happened in an apartment building, and they were digging through the rubble and looking for survivors, and they found a dude who part of like the piping of the building was jammed completely through his body, and he had been laying in that rubble for like, I don't know, like 10, 12 hours or whatever. With this
pipe was still in the body, and that kept blood in.
It kept the blood in. He didn't bleed to death. What had happened was the blood coagulated around the entry and exit wound, and because the pipe was in there, he just didn't bleed. And so when they found him, he was still alive. So it was basically that. It's like they punched that thing through him, and the blood coagulates around the entry and exit wound.
But when they find him, he didn't have the thing through the chest.
He had managed to work himself off the pipe and drop to the ground at that point. Yeah.
All right.
No, that's a real thing. That actually happened.
There might have been a 1 in a million freak accident that happened, but this guy got a pipe through his fucking heart, and he was stuck on the wall.
Yep.
Okay. And then so I guess through the night, he shimmied his body off the pipe, fell in the trash.
Yep.
And still made it. But, all right. All right. Okay, let's talk about the Rossi. Right. We are now on the Donager, and this is a good time to mention Greg Brick, who plays Lopez.
Oh my God. So this is going to be the episode where all we do is give blowjobs to our actors, which is not unusual for you, but that's weird for me.
How do you think I got the job, bro?
Well, I know how you got the job. No, but in addition to Jared Harris and Jay Hernandez, both amazing, we have Greg Brick, who is a Canadian actor in Toronto.
Talk about heavyweight,
he is any show that shoots in Toronto, like literally every show that shoots in Toronto, Greg Brick will make an appearance. And the reason for that is he is probably one of the best local actors working in Toronto. And I would add to that list Sean Doyle, who plays Saldivar Ehrenreich on the show. Sean is in like everything that films in Toronto. He's in everything that films in Canada because Sean's just that good. Greg is another guy like that. He's one of those guys that if you are shooting something in Toronto and you need somebody who can crush a part, who's local, you get Sean Doyle or you get Greg Brick.
And Greg Brick is so good that when we were in the scene with him, I immediately thought, damn it, this guy dies. Like, he's so good. I wish he was in something that, lasted a long time. Did the casting director come to you guys and be like, listen, this is who you want for like, how did you hear about him? Or did he just come in an audition?
No, it was, I believe, now I wasn't as involved in the casting of like non-series regulars at that point. I became much more involved in casting later, but in the
God,
first,
'cause we all know that I
in, in the
would pass muster. Frank. Anyway, go
in
ahead.
the first season, I wasn't as involved, so I don't know if he was. I don't know if he was an offer only at that point, or if he auditioned for that. I don't know. I don't know what the mechanics of that were, but I do know that once he was on the show, all of us at the producer level were like, "Oh my god, I wish we hadn't wasted this guy on this part."
Right.
Like he was so good, and to only have him for 2 episodes for years, like to this day, Narain and I will be sitting in the writers' room joking about like adding a new character, and we'll say like, "So what if Lopez had a brother?" Like Fred Lopez shows up, and like he's played by Greg Brick, and he's like, Lopez's
You don't
brother.
have to do that. You could just do something where it's just a completely different altered look.
Right.
Completely different altered look and bring him in. And no, I think we could get away with that. His wife is like an HGTV Canada HGTV star. She has her own show, like remodeling houses and stuff like that. Do you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah. So Greg not only is a phenomenal actor, he's an interesting person.
He is.
Writes
He's a very
poetry.
interesting guy.
He's really bright, funny.
He writes poetry that he posts online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoyed hanging around him. He's a really great guy and got a great family, got 3 kids. But again, to our point, he's phenomenal in this and in the interrogation scenes. And by the way, everybody watching this, Ty and I take that focus drug before we start the podcast.
Yeah. So my version of focus drug, I call it bourbon
or tequila.
or tequila. Yeah. No. So I mean, the Rossi. I mean, obviously the Miller side of the story is the investigation, but the Rossi side of the story in episode 3, that is the World War II airplane shot down behind enemy lines, and now you're in a German prison, and the German interrogator shows up and sits you down in the room and starts asking you questions. And that's how we play that. One by one, all of you guys are put in that room by yourselves with Greg, as with Lopez, as he's taking those drugs, those focus drugs that allow him to like see every twitch on your face, every movement. So he, it's people ask like, oh, is that telepathy drugs? Is he reading your mind? No, it's not telepathy drugs. It's just drugs that allow you to stay super hyper focused. And so like, if you say something and then like you look away to the left or whatever, cause there's even now there's people who like train to be sort of human lie detectors. They know all the physical tells for lies. It's that, but it's like amplified up by like 100. And so you've got a guy who's interrogating you, and he's got one purpose, and you guys don't know what that purpose is at the beginning, but he's got one purpose, and that purpose is he needs to pin this crime on somebody. Mm-hmm. He needs to pin the crime on somebody because Mars has been blamed for something. It's gonna cause a problem. It could potentially lead to a war. He just needs to find a patsy. He needs to find a fall guy.
And what I love too is him inserting these little seeds of suspicion amongst us, and then we're trapped in this cell, and we don't trust everybody. And we learn there's a lot of firsts in this episode. We learned that Naomi used to be OPA. We learned that Alex used to fly. He was a Martian that used to fly from Mars. And so we're in there, and it's that usual suspects. What about you? What about that paranoia of all that?
Turning everybody against each other.
Right. Yeah. Pitting everybody against each other. So if I was going to ask you the 5 best interrogation scenes of movies, not just movies.
Wow. Just movies.
Do you want to hear my list?
Yeah, hit me with it, man.
And it's the correct list. My list is the correct list.
Okay, you and I agree on a lot, so I'm curious to see.
Basic Instinct, first one.
Now, is this where she shows her beaver, or
that's the only one? I mean, that's Inglourious Bastards.
That's a good one, man. Inglourious Bastards is a really good one.
Yeah. Is just. Yeah. I mean, that is.
You're talking about the opening scene in the farmhouse, right?
Yes.
That's maybe one of the best scenes of all time.
I memean, that is Tarantino firing on all cylinders.
Yeah. All right. I'm with you so far. I'm
okay. We're Reservoir Dogs, when they have the cop tied up in the scene.
Yeah.
And then he, was it Maston? And then he ends up going to the,
I'm not sure that I would call that an interrogation scene though.
What is that? More of a torture scene?
It's more of a torture scene because Madsen doesn't care what the cop knows.
No, he does. He needs to know that he needs to. They need to know who he is or if he's a cop.
No, I think Tim Roth is worried what the cop's going to say. I think Harvey Keitel wants to know what the cop is going to say. I think Harvey Keitel's the only one in that scene that actually cares what the cop has to say. I think Madsen just wants to kill a cop. I don't think Madsen actually cares.
I'm trying to remember how important it was. But don't they need to? Don't they need, if he is a cop, something? So you're saying that Madsen's trying to prove that he's a cop so he can kill him.
No, because the cop is wearing a uniform. He's a cop. There's no question.
No. Okay, now I remember now. They're trying to figure, one of the people in the group is a cop, and they're trying to get it from him who that cop is. So that's right. Is an interrogation scene. They're interrogating him,
except it's the interrogation is very brief, and the Harvey Keitel character and the Steve Buscemi character, who are the two who actually want to know what the cop has to say, leave. And Tim Roth, who is the undercover cop, is worried that the cop's going to give him up.
But Madsen, no, it's not short because it continues on with Madsen cutting his ear off and all this stuff.
And Madsen isn't asking him any questions.
But he needs to know who the cop is in the group.
No, he doesn't. Oh, here's your memory is bad on this. So Tim Roth doesn't want to get exposed. That's part of the scene. The other two parts are Harvey Keitel and Steve Buscemi. So Steve Buscemi believes that there is a rat in the group. Harvey Keitel does not believe there's a rat in the group. Those two guys are arguing with each other about whether or not there is a rat. They leave together.
But it's still an interrogation scene.
They leave together. Once they leave, Madsen never asks that guy another question. Madsen doesn't give a fuck what that cop knows. The only thing Madsen wants to do once the other two leave is he just wants to fuck that cop.
Does Madsen know? Does Madsen believe there's a cop in the group?
He doesn't care. He's a crazy guy. He doesn't care. He just wants to kill a cop.
And then the Dark Knight.
Dark Knight's a good one.
Dark Knight.
That's a good one. Now, are you talking about the one where Commissioner Gordon leaves the room and Ant-Man steps out of the shadows?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great fucking scene. Where he hits him in the head and he's like, never start with the head.
Yeah, he goes, you never start with the head. It gets dizzy and you don't
get fuzzy.
And then he slams his hand and he goes, see?
that is actually a great moment. That's a great moment.
That's a good scene. And I love the Nolan, man. But I love how that scene is structured. He's in there, he's going back and forth, and then he says, okay, and he leaves, shuts the door, turns out the light, and then boom, and then Batman is there, and then Batman has control. You think he has control.
Right.
And then the scene is about the power of who has the power and the control of the scene, and it shifts back to the Joker, because the Joker had the power, and then he gave it, and then Batman's got the power now, and then it shifts back to the Joker. And then Batman loses control and then goes and locks the door. So then he can't come and, because he's about to start torturing me, he goes and locks the door, and Gary Oldman tries to get back in, and then he goes back. I mean, that's a really, really just a well-written, well put together, well acted scene. It's
a brilliant scene. And it has one of the most famous lines from that entire movie. It's where Batman has been beating the shit out of the Joker. Because let's back up a little bit. The reality of the fight between the Batman and Joker is the Joker is never a physical threat to Batman. Batman is fucking Batman. If you get in a fight with him, he just fucks you up, right? I mean, that's the reality of Batman.
Right.
So the Joker is never going to win a fist fight with Batman. Right. He knows that.
Right.
So when Batman's beating the shit out of the Joker's just laughing at him because he never thought he could beat Batman in a fist fight. He never thought that. So Batman beating him up doesn't prove anything.
And he says that. He goes, "There's nothing you can do to me."
That's what I was about to say. That line when Batman knocks him to the ground and the Joker's laughing at him, he says, "You have nothing to threaten me with."
Yeah.
And he says, "For all your strength, you have nothing to threaten me with." Such a powerful moment because the Joker is saying, "I don't have to beat you in a fist fight. I know I can't beat you in a fist fight. And the fact that you can beat me in a fist fight is irrelevant."
Right.
And it's such a great moment because all Batman is physical power.
And then he
physical power is useless on the Joker.
And then he says, but I'm going to tell you because that's the point.
Yeah, exactly.
Point. So he's showing him that he's dominating him intellectually and has and already thought it through. And he's the one with the power in the room. And then he gives him the scenario of who he's going to save. Did Nolan write that?
That's him and his brother, right?
Yeah, probably. That's my favorite Batman. What's your favorite Batman?
Okay, so I do like
Michael Keaton, the original.
No, I was gonna say I do like Christian Bale. I do like Christian Bale as Batman, but I will say that that's my favorite Joker of all time.
Oh, hands down, my favorite Joker. Now, I don't. Now, in terms of favorite Batman, that's a different conversation. That's my favorite Batman movie.
Yeah.
Dark Knight is my favorite Batman.
I think Dark Knight is arguably the best Batman movie of all time. We're back to the interrogation, right?
Yeah,
on the Donager. And let's give a little background. So, I mean, our guys have been captured by the Donager, which is the flagship of the Jupiter fleet for Mars. And Mars is we've talked about Mars as this incredible military power. And then the Donager shows up and grabs the Knight in episode 2, our previous episode, and it dwarfs the Knight. It's this massive machine that pulls up next to them and just casually grabs the Knight with this this hand and pulls it into the ship and closes the door. And it's like, okay, you're fucked now, right? You just got picked up by an aircraft carrier. Nobody's going to fist fight their way off of an aircraft carrier. That's never going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. And our guys are trapped there. And now the Martians show up, and you've got Greg Brick, this like super intense guy playing Lieutenant Lopez, super intense, super focused, physically intimidating. He's a big guy. He's a large guy. He's very scary. He's taking these focus drugs. He's taking these drugs that give him this like almost supernatural ability to interrogate people. And that's where we drop our crew. Trapped on this ship that no one would ever be able to escape from, being interrogated by scary guys who have like the supernatural ability to tell when you're telling lies, and who have now planted all these seeds within the crew to make them turn on each other, to make them think that the other crew members can't be trusted. And that's where we pick up our story.
One of the things, when you go on the Martian ship, you see the level of professional military bearing, how squared away the technology of their ships, because this is a planet that is surrounded by their enemies, that and they don't really have, their planet's not sustainable yet. They don't have, their trade is technology. Their superpower is technology. Yeah. Because if there's so many generations removed from Earth, and Earth is now not, they see themselves more as Martians now than as Earth, and Earth is a potential rival or a potential enemy. They have to, it kind of reminds me of Israel in a lot of ways. You think Israel has the greatest air force, and their military is phenomenal. They're a small little country, and they're surrounded by their enemies. And so they've kind of, they've made their way through technology, through military technology, and they've had to kind of be forged into this, fighting machine, this level of professionalism that I see from the Martians. Yeah.
And I'm going to embarrass you here, but so tell the audience the kind of ship you served on in the Navy.
I was on the Essex for 2 years and the Bellawood for 2 years.
And what kind of ships are those?
It's a LHA and a LHD, and it's a vertical landing and takeoff carrier. So we don't have jets. We don't have the only jet we have on the ship are Aviate Harriers.
Yes.
And we have 46s, Cobras, and 53s. And basically we are a Marine ship, and we're troop carriers. Right. And it's an amphibious ship. So if we're going to do like a major invasion or so, they have hovercrafts in the belly of the ship, and they flood the ship. They literally will lower a drawbridge that floods the ship, and they sink it halfway. And the carriers jump out. So now you have 46s, 53s. So the amount of ammo and troops and food and supplies and things that we can put on a beach in such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
These ships are really efficient for that.
Yeah. So I wanted the audience to hear that because I knew that. We had talked about that. I remember one time driving down to Comic-Con. I was talking to you at Comic-Con. It's like, I think I saw one of your ships out doing war games out in the bay there, and you're like, holy shit! Like, you actually recognized the kind of ship I was stationed.
Well, they were doing the Colonel Blitz, and they do that. They do that every year, and basically it's an exercise, and it's a work. Some of the ships use it as workouts before they go on long deployments or something like that. But basically, it's an exercise of invading the beach up there, right? Sharpening everything, and it's a coordination with the West Coast Fleet of evading the Camp Pendleton.
Yeah. So I wanted you to tell the audience that, because I had a question, which I think is sort of scene setting for this episode, which is, if you were a suspected enemy, a suspected hostile force, like let's say you were a suspected terror cell that was out in like a little boat that they thought was laying mines to kill U.S. Navy ships or whatever, and the ship you served on grabbed those people up and brought them in as that ship as prisoners, how fucking scary would that be for the person who got grabbed? Because I got to think, if you get taken into that ship with all of that military power, like all of those sailors and Marines and all of the firepower that's on that ship, and you're a guy who you're five guys who were in a boat, a little like a little dinghy, and you get grabbed up by that ship, and they're like, we know you were laying mines out there. We know you've been laying mines. We know you've been trying to destroy U.S. ships. Do you think you're ever getting out of that ship? I mean, I would just say I'm picturing that, because
it depends on what country gets you.
Well, I'm just saying, do you think you're ever getting out of that ship without being a prisoner? Right? Because I'm trying to paint the picture of is, for the five of you, grabbed up by the Donager, taken on board, locked in rooms. They go, we know we know you've been doing this thing. We think you destroyed the Canterbury. We think you're blaming us for it. For those five characters, do you think you guys are ever walking off that ship not a prisoner?
And that's what makes Shed so funny in that scene, because he was like, I walked in, it was like, did you sign up? Because Az was in full, and Shed goes, is that an option?
Right. He's still trying to figure out how to get out of there.
They go, what did you tell him? And he said, I told him fucking everything I could possibly tell him. And then I was like, they're lying to us. They told me that you were a drug dealer that lied on your record. And he goes, that's true.
But I think of all of you, I think of the five of you, the most realistic character in that scene is Shed. Yeah. Because he's the one who gets it. He's the one who goes, guys, we've just been grabbed up by the most awesome military force in the solar system. They think we're terrorists. You guys know we're fucked now, right? Right. He's the one who gets it. Everybody else is trying to figure out an angle. Shed is not trying to figure out an angle. He knows.
No, he knows. He knows. He's doing that. But that's a good way to present and build and create the situation, is like, these guys, you're getting swallowed by a whale, and you're going inside the belly of the beast. And this is an efficient, prepared, ruthless army that ultimately, and Navy, and ultimately, that their cunning and their skill is why they are a major power.
Yeah.
And so they're going to figure this, that, you were to spend, we were in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah. Now I have a question for you as a performer.
Okay.
Because I'm happy to talk about the writing side of this, but you're our window into the performance side of this. So I'm going to ask you a question as a performer. Knowing what you know, and your military history, and knowing what it's like to be in a military vessel like that, and also with your insight into the Amos character, because I know you did a lot of research, and you and I talk about Amos a lot. I know you have a pretty deep insight into who Amos is and why he does the things he does. I didn't write episode 3 of the first season, but I always felt like when Amos grabs Alex around the neck and says, have you heard of a human shield? He'll take the first couple bullets and he starts heading out like he's going to go out. I've always felt like that was Amos just deciding to die on his feet. He doesn't think he's going to win. He doesn't think he's going to fight his way off the ship. He doesn't think, like, he has no illusions that it is possible for him to win. I think that's Amos going, I'm fucked no matter what. I might as well die on my feet, taking a few guys with me, and here's how I'm going to start. I've always felt that was his motivation in that moment, because I don't think Amos thinks he's getting away.
If I'm being honest, going back and watching it now, it kind of doesn't make sense to me, because, knowing Amos's way of thinking is the ultimate survival. That choice that less ditch choice has not really, that's not where we are yet. Okay. So when we get to episode 7 and we're about to be boarded, that is a last stand situation. That's where I'm going in the airlock, where I got the pitch point. They got to come through. They're going to funnel in this way. I'm going out in a blaze of glory. That makes sense. At this point, we still have a few things to learn. There's still a few things up the sleeve in order to do the last stand type situation.
See,
so for me to grab,
I don't know if I agree with that, because at this point, you have been captured by the inescapable cops.
Right.
You are about to be taken to a planet you've never been to before.
Right.
And put in a prison. In episode 7, he talks about a Martian gulag, right? Like, I don't want to die in a Martian gulag. I'd rather die here. I think he's thinking that in episode 3 too. I think he's thinking
the difference is in that situation, Naomi is with me in that room. And if it was me by myself, I could probably see that happening, but I don't know if all the cards have been shown. I don't know if we exactly know why we're in this situation and where we're going. But if I truly believe that we're going back to Mars and I'm going to end up in a gulag or they're going to murder us, then I would do a last stand. But I still, with Naomi in the room with us and in that situation, I don't know if I would welcome these, bullets flying at that point.
Well, I mean, that's watching the scene. And again, I didn't write that scene, but watching the scene, that's the justification that makes sense to me.
Well, that's how I approached it on the day, because, knowing the level of the ship and the professionalism of the soldiers and how well they're trained and the technology and everything that they have. And there's no way. And so then it's like, well, if we're going to die, we're going to go out and I'm going to have this guy die first.
So, I mean, that's the thing is, like, in the scenario I was talking about, like, 5 guys in a boat get grabbed by, like, an aircraft carrier. If those 5 guys are Al-Qaeda, they know they're never going home. It's not like they're ever going to go back to their families. Even if they're not killed, the only way they're getting off that boat or off that aircraft carrier is, like, being sent to, like, Guantanamo or something, right? Mm-hmm. That's the rest of your life. You look at it, you go, oh, the rest of my life is either I'm in a brig on this ship, or I'm going into a prison cell in Guantanamo. And there's no version that isn't that. That's the version that made sense to me for that moment is Amos going, oh, I'm spending the rest of my life on this ship and in a prison somewhere. And I think we've established that Amos, he would much rather be dead than be in prison. When he offers to Clarissa to let her kill herself rather than go to jail. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think in that situation, you can make the decision. And it's always interesting, but also tricky to kind of go back and think, if I would have made that same decision, because I don't have the information that I had then. Right. There's some details and things that I probably forgot. And we probably had conversations like this about it.
Yeah.
But I do think if I do make the decision, okay, all is lost and I need to get out of here, I don't know if that was the best time. I think you would sit and watch and think and try to think of the best, maybe in transition from the Donner to Mars or whatever, if that would have been the best stand to do it. But it does make sense, but the reality is that the scene was getting to a fever pitch. We're screaming at each other, and it could have been an emotional thing like, fuck it, let's just get out of here.
And if Amos truly believes that Alex is a turncoat.
Yeah.
That if Alex is going to sell them out to the Martians to save his own skin because he's a turncoat, it may also be just like a fuck you, you don't get to live through this either.
Yeah.
right?
That was a nice that's a nice comedic moment when we walk in there and then Cass is drinking. He turns around and he's in the Martian outfit. It's like, what the fuck is this?
It is a nice moment. What did you join up? And then, like you said, Shed going, "Oh, is that an option?" Because he's ready to join up if that gets him out of trouble. Yeah, but you did mention some things that I think are important in here. This is the first moment where we hear that maybe Naomi has a dark past. That there is a reason. So the Martians aren't idiots. When the Martians are trying to pin this on Naomi, it's not because they're stupid. It's because they know shit. They know about the Inaros crew. They know about the Augustin Gamarra. They know about her connection to that crew. Enough, at least, for them to suspect that she had an involvement of some kind. So they're not idiots. They're going, we should blame her because we'll be able to create a paper trail that makes sense with her. We can draw a line from the Augustin Gamarra through the Marco Inaros crew to the destruction of the Canterbury, and she's the contact point at every point. That will make sense to the world.
And because it made sense to me. Because when Holden's on the bridge and she says, you're going to confess this and that Naomi was the one. And he's like, I don't know that she's the one. But when in the head, I was like, that's so smart. I would pin it on her. It really solves their problem. They'll figure out who did it later. But right now they got to get this heat off their back.
Right.
So
honestly, there's at least some % chance that they think she actually did do it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, no, because when he was interrogating her and you could see that he was reading from, like, he started putting the whole story together through her reactions. So he knew when he also was telling the truth. And then when he was saying, who answered the distress call? Did you answer the distress call? And he's like, you didn't answer the distress call. Who did it? Holden answered the distress. And then he was putting it all together. So he knew that Holden was the one that answered the distress call, the one that is suspicious in that.
But he also says to Holden, she's the best liar of you by far. He also says that to Holden, that like she's the most practiced liar in this group. So maybe she does have more to hide. And as it turns out, as we reveal across 5 seasons, she actually totally did have more to hide.
Totally. And, the shit that she did with the protomolecule.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yep.
All right, we'll talk a little bit about Sheree. So,
you mean the Queen of Earth?
The Queen of Earth. Aren't you like the Queen of Earth or something? Where we pick up, Sheree wants to send the fleet because they got the word, with Holden saying that they were killed by Martian stealth.
Yeah.
She's scared that the OPA she's scared that the OPA and Mars are working together, and she's having a meeting with Sean Doyle, Aaron Wright, and Admiral Souther, and played by Martin Roach, and they are discussing the possibility that Mars and the OPA are working together. And the Admiral, he's saying that we need to sit back and wait, and Avasarala is saying we need to take action.
Yeah.
But a quick little side note. I saw Martin Roach in the Kurt Russell Santa Claus movie. Did you see him? Yeah. And I was like, my God, that's my boy. And I was like, he got to work with Kurt Russell. So, we need to have him on the show and just ask him what Kurt Russell's like.
Like Greg Brick and Sean Doyle, Martin Roach is one of those actors. If you're working in Toronto, you're going to get Martin Roach because he's one of the top actors working in that city. Also a fantastic voice actor. He's got an amazing voice. So a lot of animation, I'll be watching animated stuff. I'm like, oh, hey, that was Martin. Like his voice is so recognizable.
He's just a talent, he can do it all, and he's versatile, and he did such a great job with his part. And again, I mean, we are so lucky to have this stable of actors to be able to choose from working up here in Toronto. But anyway, what did you think about Kurt Russell as Santa Claus?
I'm not a big Christmas movie fan.
You want to know what I think?
What did you
Doesn't
think?
matter if you're a Christmas movie fan. Kurt Russell is the best goddamn Santa Claus I've ever seen. And Kurt Russell he's good in everything he does. And, Ty and I, for those that don't know, we're big Kurt Russell fans. And so he can do no wrong for us. And I was really impressed with the Santa Claus skills.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that it is hard to find a thing that Kurt Russell cannot do.
If Kurt Russell's in something, I will watch. I will be there on opening day, whatever that is. Even Captain Ron, I'm there. Okay, we'll get back to it. So, what I really have enjoyed about watching Sheree in these early years is to remember how shrewd she was, and that she was going to win, and what she did to get what she wanted. And she still has that, but she's definitely grown a lot. And, we're at season 5 now, going into season 6. And with the death of her husband, there's been some growth and some changes within her. But now she's in her, all pistons are firing, and she's going to figure out what this thing is, to the point with the Martian ambassador, who was a friend of her father, and they had this childhood relationship and this closeness. She manipulates and uses that relationship to find out if Mars is really working with the OPA. And the way that she does is she leaks it to him, and then he ends up, alerting Mars, and then Mars, they do inventory all over the planet, and we pick those signals up, and we read about where the stealth tech, doing inventory in the stealth tech, and where it's gone. And that's how she learns from that. But she totally burns her friend in the process. Yeah. And it's almost like she accepts that that's the price I got to pay in order to get this information.
So as a sort of an aside, every book of The Expanse has sort of a different genre to it. Daniel and I like switching genres. So the first book, Leviathan Wakes, which is what the first season is based on, is sort of the space opera, the classic space opera, with some horror elements. But the second book, Caliban's War, is our spy thriller book, sort of our Tom Clancy kind of book. And the story that we pull into the first season comes partly from that second book, because Vosseral isn't in the first book. She's in the second book. And so her story in the first season has that sort of Tom Clancy spy thriller kind of feel to it. And it's that kind of thing where, you're facing the possibility of global war, and there's nothing you won't do to stop that. You'll burn friends, you'll burn contacts, it's all the spycraft stuff that she's doing to figure out what's going on the other side, and does wind up burning a friend of hers in order to get the information that she needs. But she considers that information so vital to the survival of her world that there's nothing she won't do to get it.
If you guys like the jump around genre so much, and you and I are both lovers of horror and horror thriller, horror mystery, horror action. When are we going to dive in? I mean, I guess you did the proto-molecule monsters, certain things like that, but when are we going to get a real scary Expanse episode? Dive into that. And we should do one, like one episode where it's a pure horror. Like, that's the tone from beginning to end, and just do it. And then, I guess we're running out of episodes, but
we'll do that as our Christmas episode.
Has there ever been a legit, and this is probably a really stupid question, and if it is, but has there ever been a legit scary series that consistently stays scary?
Twilight Zone.
Yeah, Twilight Zone has scary ones, Well, the original, like the Rod Sterling, there's some scary ones. What do you think is the scariest Twilight Zone episode?
Obviously, this is all me as a kid, because I watched Twilight Zone. When I was a kid, you would come home from school and you would watch Twilight Zone and Alfred Hitchcock Presents. They were that was the 1 hour after school. Those two things were on every day. Mm-hmm. And so I got to watch all of them. And so as a kid, a kid like 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, I saw all the Twilight Zones. Talking Tina fucked me up.
That's the one. That's mine.
Talking Tina fucked me up.
Fucking that one just.
The other one that got me, like, it was such a shocker that it like fucked me up was the one where through the whole thing, all the doctors and nurses have face masks on.
Eye
of the Beholder. Yeah, that one got me. I was not ready for the twist ending there. But there was a bunch of them like that just where it's just so shocking when it happens that like it just fucks you up. Yeah.
One that really scared me, and you know what's, you go back and I mean, you think about Talking Tina, and then and then you think of the movies like Chucky and The Conjuring, and like when you go back and watch these Twilight Zones, you realize how many ideas, how many movies have been spawned off of these things. But one of the ones that used to scare me, that's not really scary, I saw it not too long ago, but there's a and also they remade it in the 80s, which I really like too. But there's one where the lady's in the shopping mall and she's looking for a present for her daughter, and it's and she can't find it, and she's there, and the mall ends up closing. And she starts hearing and she somehow is like stuck in this mall and she can't come out. And she starts hearing all these voices and things calling her. And then she starts discovering these people in the mall, and they ask her about past, and she can't remember. She's like, where did you come from? Where is it? And she can't remember. It turns out she's a mannequin.
Yeah. And
they take turns, and one mannequin gets to be alive and go on vacation out in the world, and they got to come back. And this lady stayed too long. And for whatever reason, that scared me, like being stuck in the mall with all these, and you coming back and being a mannequin and everything. But
no, that one was a scary one. The other show that had like, and this is probably why I'm such a sci-fi fan, but the other show that had some really, really, really scary horror sci-fi episodes was The Outer Limits. The Outer Limits had some creepy ass stuff. And it had much more of a tone of sci-fi horror than Twilight Zone did. Twilight Zone did all kinds of things. The stories ranged all sorts. Like there were feel good stories. Remember like the one where they're on the train, he's on the train and he gets off at the last stop and it's like the super nice town, and last train to whateverville was that one. They had all different tones to Twilight Zones.
Right.
Outer Limits almost always was sci-fi horror. And that episode probably kept a creepy tone, or that show kept a creepy tone through its whole run more than maybe any other did. But since you're asking about sci-fi horror or about horror, I will give a shout out. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but a friend of Robin Veith, who was a writer on our show in the first couple of seasons, he had a show on sci-fi called Channel Zero. I felt like the first season of that show was maybe one of the sort of nonstop creepiest seasons of TV that has been made. That was a really effective horror show on TV.
It's called, what is it called?
Channel Zero.
All right, I'm gonna check that out because I've never seen that.
Yeah.
And you're right. Yeah, Twilight Zone would, and that's what I loved about it. And then here's the thing: if we start getting into Twilight Zone, it'll be a 4-hour podcast.
Yeah, we'll never stop.
There will be many, many more Twilight Zone episode talks as we go through this, because in a lot of ways, I mean, the amount that you can learn. I have all the scripts that were ever written about Twilight Zone, and just it's these mini, short stories, short movies with, the 3 acts and the way that it's done, and, the way that it's structured and the way it has a twist at the end or whatever. I mean, it's genius. It's, a brilliant show. And, Rod Sterling wanted to do a show that was about politics, that was about, social justice, that was about, what was going on at the time, late 50s going into the 60s. And, the networks were selling soap. They're selling products. They didn't want to deal with any of that stuff at the time. And so he created this sci-fi show that, and kind of put it in another place in another time where you could tackle these issues and explore these things in a way, and that the network never really knew what was going on.
Yeah, and he was very clever. He was very sneaky about it, because the other thing he did. So one of dragging it back to the Expanse for a second. One of the nice things about the Expanse, this era of television, is Daniel and I in the books, and then now on the show with Narain and the other writers, we're allowed to directly tackle issues we want to tackle. Issues of like, the Expanse has tackled things like refugee crises and racism and class issues and economic disparity and food disparity and worker oppression of workers and all of those things. And we can just tackle those head on because you're allowed to do that on TV now. Back when Rod Serling was doing Twilight Zone, you were not allowed to do that. That was not cool. If you were attacking things like that, you were just not going to make it onto TV. So as exactly what you said, what Rod would do is he would hide it in this other story. And one of the things that watching it now, because that was in the 50s and 60s, that was the height of the Cold War. And so many Serling stories were so skeptical of Cold War hysteria.
Right.
It's so skeptical of like communist witch hunts and that sort of thing.
You know what? Hold on. You know what's genius and what would be, and it just popped in my head, and what would be really great to even watch right now is Monsters on Mulberry Street.
Yeah.
And
yeah, exactly the episode I was thinking about.
Exactly. So, you have this, so there's this little neighborhood that takes place in this, Americana town. And in this neighborhood, all these, close neighbors and friends, and they had relationships, and it's just, like an idyllic suburb in 1950s America. And then all of a sudden, things start happening, like power goes out, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. Power's going out, they can't, but then power in one house would come on, and then that would go off, and then a car would crank up, and then they started to get suspicious. And then one kid gave a story about aliens coming from outer space, and that this could be it. And because the adults were so scared that they started believing that maybe some of these people are aliens, or they were connected to aliens. And so the paranoia started rising and rising and rising to a fever pitch. And these are neighbors, and this is all in one day. And these are neighbors and people that, barbecued or whatever. And then all of their flaws and hate and what they really thought about each other and the negativity. And it rose to the level where they murdered somebody. And then when that person gets murdered, it's an all out breakout riot. And, they're, in violence. And then cut to the camera pulls back, and there's a little space shuttle, and it's sitting there, and there were aliens. And he says, so this is how we do it. One of the aliens says, the other alien goes, this is how we do it. And he goes, yeah, we don't have to cause any damage or weapons or anything. All we do is we just show up and we just turn off their power and do these things. And that's what happens. That's the result. And you realize that's such a brilliant thing, because society is so fragile.
It's so fragile.
It is so fragile. And you have to protect it, and you have to have an open mind and an open eyes and really pay attention, and morals and that in principles that mean something.
You mean the thing about civilization is it keeps you civil?
Yeah, the thing about civilization keeps you civil. But anyway, before we we can end on that note before we get too philosophical. So that's it for the discussion of season 1, episode 3. I'm Wes Chatham. This is my good pal Ty. Please like and subscribe. Let us know what you think. And then if you have questions later on about episodes that we're going to talk about, if there's anything specific you want to ask us, you can reach out to Twitter, Instagram, and let us know.
Say goodbye, Ty.
Goodbye, Ty.